Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Judas Ex Machina here for, how shall I call it? Welcome to Riverdale. So I've had the displeasure of watching the new Riverdale show based on the Archie comics, and yeah, Netflix is releasing these episodes once a week, and if I do more videos on this show, I'll do them 2 episodes at a time. So, yeah, I have a small laundry list of why I don't like this show, and a few reasons why I do like the show. For now, let me ruin it for those who haven't seen it yet. Miss Grundy fucks Archie. Yeah, if you watch this show, you might think that it was murder that tossed these naively sweet characters into reality, but you'd be wrong. Miss Grundy is hot in this Archie universe, and I say this Archie universe because this isn't some alternate universe, and I'll explain that in a moment. So the catalyst for the Deus Ex Machina, I'll explain that in a second, in all of this is a teacher raping a student. I mean, let's toss all the garbage out of that consensual stuff, because if the situation were reversed and Mr. Weatherby was plowing Josie on the principal's desk, you'd all be having conniption fits about abusing power and rape. Because that's what this is. Rape. So Archie is innocently walking home from work, and Grundy sees this sweaty, muscled teenager and altruistically gives him a ride home. Yeah. So some people think that it was the murder of some secondary character that launched all this darkness into Riverdale, but it wasn't. It was a teacher stepping out of professional boundaries and raping a student. This is compounded by the fact that Archie and Grundy are fucking in the woods when they hear a gunshot. Presumably the same shot that killed whatever the hell character I'm supposed to care about dying, but I don't. Okay, so I'm the first to say books, even comic books, and movies are different mediums, and they shouldn't be compared to each other. Books are the inspiration for the movie, but the movie doesn't have to be like the book. I get that. That's the easiest way for me to get through movies that are based on books, is for me to forget that or think that's a different universe. And that the movie is its own universe and the book is its own universe. And because of that, I'm glad. I'm glad Wolverine doesn't wear yellow spandex in the movies. Okay, that kind of crotch-bulging disco outfit works on the small panels and in comic graphic novels, but it looks as ridiculous as a giant blue penis on the big screen. So, yet here I am, watching characters who are not beloved to me being twisted at the altar of realism, before having the grinding Deus Ex Machina grind their characters to a pulp. So I was never an avid Archie reader, despite being a redhead and somewhat of a goody two-shoes. But what do I mean by Deus Ex Machina? Well, I'll use the epic poem Beowulf as an example. In the epic poem, no weapon can kill Grendel. None. Not a single weapon. How does Beowulf kill Grendel? By ripping his arm off, beating him with it, and scaring him so badly that Grendel runs off into the woods and bleeds to death. How does the movie Beowulf deal with the magical enchantment of no weapon killing Grendel? Well, there's this magic sword, see? A weapon. They cheated. Capital C, cheated. They couldn't use the obvious brilliant trick of not breaking the rules. The rule was no weapon can kill Grendel. The movie cheated using the god in the machine, or the Deus Ex Machina, or the writer being lazy to fix the problem of not being creative enough. So, in a quick rundown of why I don't like this series, that tops number 1. The writers feel lazy to me when it comes to the Archie characters. While the original comic books may seem quaint or unrealistic to today's writers, it's actually a disservice to good writing and teenagers everywhere. There's this assumption that there is no such thing as a genuinely good person, or at least one that's not on Adderall. And I'm talking to whoever decided that Betty couldn't be a nice person without being medicated. And while I'm not a fan of most teenagers, and I think they are for the most part dumb, and I have thought this way when I was a dumb teenager, I thought teenagers were dumb, it doesn't help to portray them as these backstabbing, sex-addled, evil people who are only good because of some overarching guilt complex. These writers couldn't seem to understand actually good people, so they cheated and they created these Freudian garbage reasons for characters to fit into what they mocked in the original series, or in the original comics. So a huge issue I have is that it isn't a different universe. Like when Archie and the gang fight Predator in the comic books. That's kind of its own little microcosm. It's off to the side. It's like, hey, isn't it kind of neat that Predator is all of a sudden fighting Archie? Ha ha ha, or Archie versus zombies. Like, that's kind of a ludicrous idea, and it works because of the dichotomy. So, this isn't an alternate universe to the Archie comics continuity, because it's directly referenced by Betty when she talks about helping Lil Archie, a fact that happened in the comic books, helped him study and pass, and they talked about getting married. So it is established that this is their history. Their comic book history is what is real. So, and that's why I have an issue with all these changes. It alludes that this is the universe of your youth, the shiny bright colors of the Archie comic Digest, brought to you in vivid HD. In Pleasantville, a movie actually referenced in Riverdale, the wholesome black and white characters are corrupted by real people in an atavistic fashion that leads from primitive feelings that starts with fire into a sexual liberation of sorts where color is introduced into the world. With Riverdale, the similar premise is given, but it's dismissed as well. They haven't said this is a different universe where the lives of the Archie gang have begun and turned out slightly differently. They've outright alluded that this is the same universe as the pages of the comic, but then they artificially altered the circumstances to make the characters fit into our world. So there's a concept in this series that if you toss an Archie character into the real world, then their character would make wrong, even horrible or immoral choices. It's as though the writer said, no one would ever make the right decision by choice. And these are the same writers that hate Superman, because he chooses to be good because that's the right thing to do. The writers don't believe that virtue is its own reward. These writers are probably the same type of people who try to make sympathetic villains and don't believe that a Joker could ever exist without some kind of tragic motivation. And they twist it so that evil is good and good is evil. And to me, that makes for really poor writing and characters. There is a moment in one of the two episodes, it's actually episode 2, where Archie's dad, Luke motherfucking Perry, and Archie have an actual Archie moment, and it feels like the most genuine part of the show. It's like someone actually picked up the comic and read Archie wanting to do the right thing for a brief moment and understood his character. It isn't in his character to want to fuck his teacher. He might want to fuck Veronica, but go after Betty because she's easier in the real world. But even in the real world, Grundy would be placed in a separate part of his life because Archie in school is just as oblivious as he is out of school. It's kind of his character. And this also kind of speaks volumes about how the modern teenager is viewed. Like Pretty Little Liars, the Vampire Diaries. Teenagers are these Machiavellian sexpots out to destroy each other with no redeeming value. And that's just really sad. It's like they're telling the youth, don't bother being a good person. That's just a lie. You might do all this.
Sorry for the gigantic change in lighting, area, everything else. I was interrupted at the end of my last video by my wife waking up in the middle of the night and wondering where the hell I'd gone, and bursting through the door and saying, "What are you doing?" So I cut that part out, and I'm just going to continue on with my little diatribe. So, it's like they're telling the youth, don't bother being a good person, that's just a lie. You might do all these bad things, but you're expected to, so that makes it okay. Characters. Betty isn't nice. She's on medication and has no backbone. Reggie and Archie in the comic books have a frenemy relationship. While they don't like each other, there's kind of a mutual respect. So in the show, Reggie's a jock that just tries to force Archie to act like him. Veronica in the comic books is duplicitous, but often comes to the conclusion that her privilege doesn't get her anything. And she can also be very genuine and caring when not selfish. In the show, I think she's the closest to a real person and could have been something the writers could have pushed into other characters. Moose, of course, was a lovable dumb jock who actually stuck up for characters like Dilton Doyle. In this, Moose is a closet homosexual getting blowjobs from Kevin at the school dance in the locker room. In the comics, he would have stood up for Archie if Reggie had acted like he did in Riverdale. And Archie has changed from the happy-go-lucky yet hapless character who's reminiscent of Charlie Brown in the level loser kind of way to a moody, confused caricature of the troubled teen. And for me, the worst, Jughead. In the show, and I'll have to rewatch it, I never see him eat anything. You want realism? Make him hypoglycemic. That's just off the top of my head. Jughead loved food. He would have eaten a lead pipe if it was filled with whipped cream. That's an easy thing to transition to the real world. Instead, he's a borderline goth teen wannabe journalist in the Veronica Mars theme. And those things are minor points that piss me off about the show, but they are still kind of important ones. I'll move on and sort of touch on that again later. The plot is interesting. Sort of. I actually don't care how whatever his name, redhead, Archie, clone, twin, dies. I don't care if he's murdered or if his twin sister did it. I am interested in how the dynamics play out between the Archie gang, but I would be interested if they weren't from Riverdale. So to me, this is an awful way to bring Archie and the gang to the small screen. They could have left the whole Grundy rape thing out of it. Fuck, they almost could have kept it in, but in a different way. To me, this is like somebody watched VeggieTales and decided to make a softcore porn out of it. Sure, Larry the Cucumber could be used as a marital aid, and I'm pretty sure you could film something like that and it would be funny, but it isn't necessary, and it definitely does nothing for the characters. This whole premise of the murder in Riverdale would have actually worked for Scooby-Doo, because they solve mysteries. What would be better than the dinky teens who go from a hardy boy tomfoolery crime-solving team to a real one that shows the characters start off from a kid-centered concept of the world to a more real one? But that's just me, apparently. So how would I have done Riverdale differently, since I have so much clout in Hollywood and being a scriptwriter? I would have left the murder and the teacher rape scene out and done it Degrassi Junior High style. Sure, there might have been some sex going on. I'm not completely oblivious. And drugs. Archie did touch on drugs in the comic books. But there still would have been that wholesomeness that the comics and the characters were really about. A show that would lead its audience to be persons of exemplary character even when it seemed hard or difficult. And I don't think enough shows have that now. We have Pretty Little Liars and we have Vampire Diaries and all these things where we're showing teens how we think they are and really not giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not a huge teen fan. I never liked them when I was a teenager. I don't really care for them now, but I don't think that they're these horrible people. So I feel the series didn't understand the characters and tried to make them change to serve the plot, and that's never good. So at this point of filming and trying to do all the editing, I'm up to 4 episodes, 5, in the Riverdale season. And I do have to say that as a story with character arc, it's pretty solid for a WB show. A few plot points revealed that some characters weren't who they said they were, so I have to say that I can't complain as to how they were portrayed since they weren't actually Archie characters. 2 points that I do have to address, though, are Jughead's seemingly unaware narration and Cheryl Blossom's acting. I'm not sure if the actor Madeline Petsch, pronunciation, is just bad or her character is. Time will tell. So it is a lie that all the Pleasantville changes that have come to Riverdale are from the murder of Jason Blossom. The true change came from Archie having sex with an adult. And whatever your feelings about the age of consent, I don't think you can be considered a biological adult until you've finished the majority of puberty, not just started it. But apparently that's just me. That illegal act was the first real crime that happened in Riverdale, and one that I feel was the actual catalyst, since it changed all the relationships from that point on. Betty's unrequited love, Archie's friendship with homeless Jughead. Homeless Jughead! Forsyth Pendleton Jones III, Jughead's father in the comic books, had a hard time beating Jughead because he ate so much, and that's why they were always broke. I get the whole Jughead is hungry switch, making him poor. So he's poor, he doesn't have access to food, he's hungry. But this whole thing with his dad being a gang member seemed like lazy writing. Really lazy writing. And so going back, I do mean first crime. Since I've mentioned before that this series is claiming to take place in the Archie universe and references Little Archie as a historical moment. I feel like the writers of this series think that Archie comic books were pictorial history seen through rose-colored glasses. And they've removed those glasses. They think they've removed those glasses, and in reality, they're viewing Archie through a glass darkly. They're imposing darkness on what was generally seen as a comic about the best in people. And that's what's missing or wrong with Jughead's narrative. The writers, using Jughead as a puppet, are viewing Riverdale in a dark way and saying it's always been like this. That there was this seeming underbelly of darkness in all the Riverdale, or Archie and the Gang comics. That and the seemingly endless use of pop culture reference as though it intellectualizes what's going on. I'm sorry, referencing other works of literature does not mean that you're cultured or more aware than other people. And this self-aware narrative comes across more grating to me than clever. So yes. Another character, Cheryl. I admit I know nothing of the actress who plays Cheryl Blossom, so I can't really compare her to other works in what she's doing with Riverdale. But I am confused about watching her. Is Cheryl Blossom, fictional character, really, really bad at being duplicitous? Or is Madeline Petsch just really bad in her line delivery? I can't tell. Cheryl cries and throws herself on her brother's coffin, and I don't buy the sadness. But I don't know if I'm not supposed to buy the sadness. Am I supposed to be a voiceless citizen of Riverdale and react with disdain because I don't believe her and I think she's faking that she's sad? Or am I a viewer watching a bad actress fall over her lines and cover it up with tears? I feel like at the end of this I'm going to discover that I'm getting punked. That's still the thing, right? Punked? Punked? No? No, you're just old. I'm just old. So, as a deeply plotted, character-driven show, this is working. The plot twists are still roughly in the realm of believability. The characters don't actually go outside their own arc in areas of character development. So far, we're not going to see Betty packing an AK-47 and begin to wipe out people in an Adderall-filmed Holmes theater act of unreality. So when she does go act a little cuckoo nutty bananas, there's really a good reason why she's acting crazy. And there's a legitimate reason why she would go a little off the rails. For those of you who haven't watched these episodes yet, kind of ignore what I'm saying. For those of you who have, I'm referencing the come-up. Deja vu, I just been in this place before.
Ja, det är ju ganska vi får säga i sätt av polis. Jag tror på det vi sätter det är så vanligt.